Hey everyone, welcome to another, albeit unusual video. For those of you who may not be familiar with me, I'm a Final Fantasy XIV content creator and streamer. My primary video content is based on me and my raid group going through endgame content in Final Fantasy XIV as blind as possible, and then I take that footage and find the most humorous moments and put a JRPG style dialogue format on top. Oh, hi Cat. As you can imagine, this takes a fair amount more effort than just taking our clear run and uploading it that same day. That being said, I've still gotten quite a few questions asking why my videos take so long to complete, why they're irrelevant by the time I get them uploaded. So today, I'm going to go over the process of what goes into a NES video, what might cause delays, and why I try to stay away from this format on any content that isn't endgame, for time reasons and the sake of my own sanity. So then, before you guys get used to what I actually look like, let's get this thing started. The process can be broken up into 8 steps depending on how I tackle it. Gathering footage, making a rough director's cut, refining the edit, adding character avatars, adding text, adding extra effects and gags, finding transition points, and adjusting the end credits and exporting the video for upload. Now for gathering footage, this may take a month, 2 months, or even a week depending on the content. It's also important to remember that we go into fights blind, so we're figuring things out as we go rather than going in with a guide in hand. Regardless, it's usually safe to assume that I have at least 2 hours of footage to condense into a 10-15 minute video. As the amount of footage increases, so does the typical video runtime. I used to record our entire raid sessions with OBS before switching to Shadowplay, which lets me be a lot more selective about what I save. Because of this change, Step 2 has become a lot more streamlined than it used to be. Now for the rough or director's cut, this is where the work actually starts. Everything before that is just actually playing the game. If I'm able to focus, especially now with Shadowplay at my disposal, I can finish a rough edit in about a day, so about 6 to 8 hours depending on how much footage I have. The rest of the process collectively takes about 3 to 4 days to complete, so I started taking these early edits without censorship, avatars, or text, and posting them as director's cuts to Patreon. Doesn't help the vast majority of viewers on YouTube, but it makes me feel better knowing that I get something out earlier than my usual timeline allows. I'm also far more liberal with what jokes and content stays in the director's cut since it's not the official edit. This can make them up to twice as long as the final version, but it still takes less time to produce because there's no avatars or text to input. That's the killer. When it comes to refining the edit, after the director's cut is done, I add music if I haven't already, and start trimming the footage down even more. This takes more time than before because now I'm trying to make sure the flow feels right. It requires me playing back the same scenes multiple times to make the proper adjustments. I also started adding music during this part of the process to make the edits feel cleaner and flow with the beat of whatever song is playing. Before, I would get the timing between dialogue to a point where it felt really comfortable to me, then add music after and be stuck wondering why transitions felt faster, slower, more awkward than when I'd originally looked over them. Adding music now helps alleviate that, though I end up with another problem I need to overcome, which I'll get to in step 7. This process takes another day or day and a half depending on the amount of footage, and I'm left with 5 to 10 minutes less than I did with the director's cut. Well, why not just keep it all in, Drak? I'll get to that in a second. Now comes adding the character avatars. Of course, our videos have the character portraits of each member with various facial expressions thanks to our longtime artist, Archie. As you can see, there are a lot of expressions to choose from, and I add more as needed. Even so, I usually already have the expression I want to show in my head, so the volume doesn't really hurt the deadline. Considering we have 8 personalities in our group, there's a high chance people are going to be talking at the same time. What I do here is figure out what dialogue I want to focus on, go frame by frame to hear when the specific person starts talking, and assign their character portrait to that spot, along with a proper expression. I also take into consideration the amount of time needed after they're done speaking for people to read it and react before cutting off the visuals. Also note that I have them all color-coded. This makes life much easier later on. This is probably the most painstaking part of the process because, like I said, multiple people could be talking at the same time at varying volumes. While I record my own voice on a separate track, I don't have anything to split each individual member. The best I can do right now is adjust their levels in Discord and just hope that they don't scream to the point of the audio clipping. I never get what I want. So I have to, frame by frame, listen through the audio to get an idea of where the person I want to highlight starts talking. This process takes about 6 to 8 hours per 10 minutes of footage. Now for adding text. Overall, this is the simplest yet most monotonous step in the entire process. Even so, it's still significantly better now than what it used to be when I started. Premiere has a feature with text in a recent update where I can add it to the timeline here, then cut it, and it will be treated as 2 separate clips. Before I had to duplicate each layer and drag them onto the timeline individually. If I accidentally copied one and brought it on, it would also change the text on the original. This led to a lot of errors and a lot of headache. It also took up a lot of space in the project area. Now, I just change the character name, drag the layer across the video, make cuts over the properly colored character items, and clean up everything else in between. Next is simply putting in the actual dialogue text. Very simple, but very arduous. Even with my typing speed, it takes about the same amount of time per minute of footage as the previous step. I have to align each segment depending on how many lines it takes up, determine the best spot to split the text into a separate layer in a way that doesn't break up the flow too much, and decide whether or not to add any effects. Individually, it's not that much, but you'd be surprised how much these little things add up. I do try to at least save myself some time by bringing in samples of the text box, an avatar, and the text, so that I have them all the right size and position. It beats redoing it all over every time. Now we add extra effects and gags. Steps 1 through 5 are the base of my workload. After that is polish. Things like death, fall, side counters, camera zoom, shirk moments, etc. are all extra things I tack on top to make the video just a little bit more dynamic. This can either be very quick and implemented while I'm adding characters or text, and sometimes it requires me to devote an hour or two to a single gag, like what I did with the text conversation with Larry Zor in our 011 Savage video. After that, we need to find transition points. These are usually to signify a new joke, situation, or setup. It's my subtle method of giving the viewer's mind a little reset to signify the start and end of any given joke. I think it also adds a little structure to the video. The only problem with this is that the transition actually starts about 4 frames before the cut I made, so the beat of the song will not line up as it originally did. In the future, I'm going to try and move this step further up the list to alleviate that issue so that the transition sound actually lines up with the music. Finally, we're on to adjusting the end credits and exporting the video. Every video, I go back through all my Patreon supporters from the relevant tiers and make sure I haven't missed any names. After all that, if Premiere sees fit, it will allow me to export my video and I can finally post it. Of course, Patreon gets it 24 hours before the public release, so it adds a bit of time to the overall process, but it's uploaded and that's all that matters. From start to finish, that's essentially my process. Hopefully that alone will clear up some confusion as to why these videos take as much time as they do and why I'm so hesitant to apply this style to every little bit of content that comes out in the game. I tried doing that at the beginning of Stormblood with all the dungeons, and I ended up 3 months behind on content until the 4.2 raid tier, even though I never stopped working on the footage once I had it all. Of course, being a raider, I spent a big chunk of the first month working on leveling and gearing my character, which is time not editing, but was necessary to be ready for the raid content once it launched so I could get that footage as well. Even so, some may be doing the math and thinking to themselves, well, all that considered, it should only take maybe 3 days to get it done, or even 2 if you spent your entire day working. And you may be right there, except there are a few extra elements in my life that prevent me from devoting the entirety of my time on every video. First on the list is my wife and kids. This is in no way a complaint, but rather a simple fact. I love my family, and I enjoy spending time with them. Even if more time spent working means more overall revenue from more videos, I don't want to sacrifice the time with my family. With 2 kids, my wife also needs me to assist her from time to time. Anyone in a similar relationship knows you can only pile the kids on one partner for so long before things get dicey. Aside from that, I'm still not making enough to justify an office away from home. Currently, the only room in our house with a direct LAN port to hardwire my computer in is more of a den and has no door, which means my daughter can come request my attention at any point. Obviously, I can't always give it to her, and I've set work and play hours, but she's got that toddler stubbornness. Our newborn daughter can't come up to me yet, but I still have to power through some of those evening crying sessions, which makes focusing a tad difficult. Next, of course, I have streaming and raiding. Streaming is another vital revenue source for my family, and raiding is the way I get footage to begin with. On raid days, this takes up the 3 hours at the end of my designated work time. I still edit a bit in the wee hours of the morning once everyone else in the house goes to bed, but that's 3 hours doing something that, while necessary for my work, isn't editing. Coincidentally, that's also the only time I have to record things like this. I try to line everything up so that I'm interrupted as little as possible through the week. I've even implemented a stream or edit week schedule where I can cut or keep a day of streaming depending on how much I have to work on. Finally, we have holidays and mental health days. It's important for everyone to take breaks, myself included. From the smallest to the largest creators and streamers on any given platform, we need some time to recuperate. I also value the time with my friends and family. I know that it means less revenue in the long run, but I prefer sacrificing some money to sacrificing my relationships. As far as my personal stability is concerned, I start to burn out quickly if I do non-stop video work for too long. I'm talking a month and a half, no real breaks. Typically, I only take one day of the weekend as an official day off, and after a few weeks of the same thing over and over, I need a few days to recover. If I don't, my creativity takes a dive and I end up more concerned about getting the video done rather than making it fun. And that's it for what goes into a Nest video. If there's anything you'd like for me to elaborate on or anything that you feel I didn't touch on, feel free to let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to address it. For the rest of you, I hope this was enlightening. The process overall is just rather time consuming and, depending on the influx of content in the game and how fast we clear it, I can have my hands full for months at a time. Still, I chose this format and I chose to stay with it. If I can ever bring more people in to help me, it will speed things up a little bit, but for now we'll have to wait on that. That being said, I'll still be doing my best, as always, to try and make my process as efficient as possible. I also appreciate the support from everyone on my channel's community page. It means a lot that so many of you would rather have my work done well than done fast. Though I hope you'll forgive my own desire to get through my workload rather than make a 30-minute video every single time. Having footage built up is just very uncomfortable for me. But I still try to bring you the best I can offer as much as possible. I still love doing what I do and at least bringing that little bit of laughter to you guys every time. Hopefully. I hope to continue doing so for a long time to come. Stay well, everyone. God bless you all, and we will see you next time. Let's do this. Testing. Alright. Scoop that in real fast. Beard's okay. For those of you who may not be familiar with me, I'm a Final Fantasy XIV content. My primary content revolves me around it. Gosh, my primary video content revolves. Jeez, what is my primary I need the fan on. Oh my goodness, I'm dying here. My primary video content is based on Final Fantasy XIV gosh, dang it. I don't like having a camera on my face. This is why I don't do it. This is why nobody knows what I look like. It's the second stinking sentence in this thing. Third sentence, excuse me. I can't even get that right. That being said, I'll still be doing my best, as always, to make sure my process is Stay well, everyone. God bless you all, and we will see you next time. Be good.